seem to mess it up almost every time.
Maybe you just need someone watching your back.
Hi folks, I'm Ignatiy Vishnevetsky.
And I'm Alex Dowd.
Today we're talking about the new Marvel movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Welcome to Film Club.
So the first Ant-Man, which introduced Paul Rudd as Scott Lang, reformed thief who gets a size-changing suit, came out right between Avengers Age of Ultron and Captain America Civil War, two character-packed, very busy Marvel films. It was kind of offered as a break, as a lighter, smaller Marvel film, basically a heist film. And that's how this feels as well. It's kind of the little post-meal snack after Avengers Infinity War, which obviously, you know, gives anyone who's been following these films, which have been going on for 10 years now, a lot to digest.
I think a lot of people were concerned going into Ant-Man and the Wasp that this was going to be a film that was going to feel maybe a little inconsequential after everything that happens in Infinity War. That, like, how are we supposed to really, with that sort of cliffhanger that's hanging over the Avengers films, how are we really supposed to get invested in this sort of side adventure?
Well, the answer is we're not. It's very small stakes. It knows it's inconsequential. It's actually set a little bit before Avengers Infinity War, but about 2 years after Civil War, we learn that Lang has been under house arrest this entire time, which kind of gives you an idea of how low priority he is in the Marvel world. And that's kind of a central gag and a central idea of these films, is that he is basically a regular guy.
Yeah, he's not a genius. He didn't even invent the suit himself. He just wears it, you know. He's not a character whose morals are ever really in question. He's just kind of a normal dude who's been thrown into the superhero world, which is a part that Rudd plays pretty well.
Yeah, it's very different from someone like Tony Stark, you know, who without the Iron Man armor he's still a brainiac. He's still incredibly rich. Yeah. Lang is barely Ant-Man even when he's in the Ant-Man suit. He's still Scott Lang. That's kind of the joke, because there's an original Ant-Man, Hank Pym, who's played by Michael Douglas. He's the guy who actually invented the technology. He has all of this backstory. And basically, Lang is the guy who's drafted to deal with his problems.
Yeah. I thought this was a lot of fun for the most part. I think that, for one thing, it has some of the best special effects of any Marvel movie I've seen yet.
I think, the two Ant-Man films and Doctor Strange, because as big and extravagant as the Marvel films are, they've never been that great at special effects.
No, they're generally not particularly impressive as effects showcases. Mostly, I think, because these films have sort of put a premium on characters and on banter and on comedy more than they have on what you might have once expected of a superhero movie, which is sort of big widescreen spectacle. But the Ant-Man films, I think, which are actually very character-driven and very comedy-driven, are also sort of casually miraculous in some of their effects work. I think because his powers, that ability to shrink or enlarge, just opens up a kind of endless possibilities for cool set pieces.
It's not just the possibilities, it's their pretty effortless handling. I think there's some ingenuity involving macro photography and focal lengths that makes this work and makes the transition between sizes come across as very, very seamless. It's I think an underappreciated aspect of these films. I think the first film did have a problem where it's obviously comedy, but it's several comic sensibilities competing with each other. You have very visual and formal gag-oriented comedy with kind of improv-y, looser moments. This feels a lot more consistent.
Yeah.
It feels a lot zippier, but the stakes are very low. Even though they're trying to rescue the Wasp, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, Janet Van Dyne.
The original Wasp.
The original Wasp, that's right, because Evangeline Lilly, who plays her daughter Hope, has since taken over the role of the Wasp. She has a shrinking suit of her own with wings. Janet Van Dyne was sucked into the quantum realm back in the 1980s. Actually, the plot of this film is quite complicated.
Yeah. But they, of course, poke a lot of fun at that.
Yeah.
You know?
It doesn't really snowball in any way. It's not like it's acquiring weight as it goes on. It just moves as quickly as it can.
Well, and I admire that about it. And I mean, we talked fairly recently about Infinity War, and that's a film that moves fast too. But that's a film that also had so many characters that it didn't really have time to give any of them particularly meaningful moments, I felt. Whereas this is one that has a decently large cast. There's a lot of sort of funny supporting characters in this world, but I think this is a much more graceful equilibrium.
Well, I think graceful may be overstating it, but I think when you compare it with something like Thor Ragnarok, which I think is a funnier and a weirder movie, but it is also more uneven. I think this feels more, this is consistently a comedy from beginning to end. It doesn't really work in any other way. Or you take something like,
occasionally as an action movie. I mean, all the Marvel films end with a sort of big, we finally got to the fireworks factory action scene.
Yeah, but the kind of what I like about this is that the scenes are always, the scale of everything is so reduced.
Yeah.
The first Ant-Man did have a lot of fun with this kind of two characters duking it out on a toy train.
Yeah, yeah.
But here you finally get to a car chase, which
Yes.
is about as small as an action scene would get in say an Avengers or a Captain America
and that's their
movie.
big set piece.
That's as big as a set piece gets here.
But I mean, it's a very elaborate set piece in a lot of ways. You're right that the scale is often literally small, but I mean, there's a lot of balls in the air during those sequences. It's one of the first times actually in a Marvel film where I did not feel fatigued by that final maybe 40-minute stretch of unbroken action, where I was like, they're giving me what I want now.
My record, 21 feet. You? 65 feet. 65.
If you two are finished comparing sizes,
65.